Hello, welcome to another Becoming a Modern Man. And this time we are going to be playing a deck I'm calling Elf Company, or Elves and Co, I guess, or Izuri and Company, whatever. Not my forte for making snappy names, but basically it's an elf deck running Collected Company to the best of its abilities. Fairly simple, lots of 1-mana elves, generate mana, got Metal Sentinels as well to be slightly more aggressive. 2 drops, we've got Visionaries to draw cards, Scavenging Ooze as well, just as a very powerful creature that can eat up our dead elves as well, and just generally be pretty nice. Rensrun Vanquisher is a card along with Elvish Champion that I'm using to sub Spell Skites. I've sold my Spell Skites because they're going to get reprinted in Modern Masters 2015. So I've just been trying some other things out in the couple of slots that are available from the original list I was working from. We've got Archdruids to make loads of mana. Izuri is one of the best finishes for the deck, is just using that overrun ability. Tends to lead to lethal. We've got Collected Company and Cord, which should act as sort of like tutors for our guys. We can find more guys or tutor out a specific one with Cord. And then the mana base is fairly simple. Forests, Cavern against decks that are trying to counter our spells, and Nixos, which can also generate a lot of mana, excuse me. Sideboard is some removal in Dismember and Beast Within. I've got Relic in here to just deal with a lot of the graveyard decks I seem to be running up against. Kitchen Finks is good against the burn decks and things, also just generally a fairly good aggressive creature. Then you've got this top end, which is Thragtusk and Wormcoil, again good against decks that are trying to like drop your life total fairly fast. With the mana you can generate, you can find these with a Cord or something, so they tend to be fairly nice and generally unexpected by the opponents, so that's fairly good. So let's run into our first match. This one's against the Jeskai control deck, and see if we can get this going. So here's our opener. Not the best, not the worst. Vines of Vastwood actually is a card I didn't mention that's in the main deck. It's not my favourite, but it is a good way to protect your Archdruids and your Izuri, etc. So that's the reason that's there. But I'm not entirely fond of it. Have to keep this hand, we're just going to leave the Mystic. Opponent plays a Mesa, nothing else. We draw an Izuri, which is nice. This hand is actually turning out fairly nice, provided our opponent doesn't spam us with removal fairly soon. Come play the Delta, can correct the Mesa. I'm going to play Dryad Arbor. We could have played either the Archdruid or the Izuri there. I like playing the Izuri because the regeneration ability is fairly nice. It means we can protect our other 2 guys, particularly our Archdruid that we want to protect. Also, as we've got Vines in hand, this actually works out pretty nicely. So if he tries to kill the Izuri, we can Vines to protect it. If he tries to kill the Archdruid, we can use the regeneration ability on the Izuri to protect that. So provided it's not like a Pyroclasm, well, I suppose even a Pyroclasm we're okay. Yeah, so I mean, I think we've got all bases covered there actually, so that works out fairly nicely. Hopefully we'll be able to get to next turn with our full complement of guys. Then cracks for some jewels, plays the Colonnade. I'm going to play Elvish Archdruid with the Cavern rather than tapping my actual Archdruid for it. Just so, because I assume he has counters, he's sorry, appears to be a control deck, so that seems like a good idea to me, to use the Cavern mana. He's at the 7 here, keeping as much green mana as possible for the regens and potentially Vines of Vastwood use. Yeah, our opponent does. Cast Supreme Verdict. It's quite an interesting play actually. It's just that there's alternatives. Usually in blue-white control you either play Wrath Verdict. Wrath prevents regeneration and Supreme Verdict is uncounterable. Usually the uncounterable is better just because there isn't a lot of regeneration going on, but in our particular deck, Izuri is a guy who can make allow you to regenerate your guys. So we're actually going to be able to put regeneration shields on all our guys except Azuri and that Dryad Arbor. Azuri can't regenerate himself, unfortunately. And then we are still in a fairly good position the following turn. We've got 9 points of power, points on 11, and actually we've got the Vines of Vastwood that we can cast just to finish the game here, which we might as well, given our opponent is tapped out. So yeah, managed to win that through, and nice to see the actual regeneration ability of Azuri come in useful, and really did a lot to protect us from that Supreme Verdict. So that was a pretty fun game 1. Let's go on to game 2. Okay, so not the most exciting hand. Not sure if he's got anything that Reclamation Sage hits, so maybe we should have boarded that out, but some of these decks do run sort of things like Detention Sphere, etc., so I figured it's worth keeping the 1 of in. Should probably add more to the sideboard actually with Reclamation Sages. That's something I'm missing on my current build. It was in the original build, I think. Could have played Scavenging Ooze there. I'd rather play it out a bit later and make it big enough to avoid a bolt or something like that. So I decided just to run a Mystic, and then we're just going to attack this other one. Also, Reclamation Sage, I don't see much point running it out unless we're going to get some value off it. It's a 2-1, but I don't feel like that puts us in a great position. One cast Lingering Souls, makes a couple of spirits. So yeah, interesting, he's not actually just Jeskai, he's got a splash of black there for Lingering Souls. Quite interesting. This makes me want to pay out my Scavenging Ooze and just eat up that Lingering Souls. I don't want him getting any more value off that. It's a bit of a risk, it does make our Scavenging Ooze vulnerable, but I want to do that just so that he doesn't get as much value as he possibly could out of that. There's Electrolyze. Seems like a good time to use Vines of Vastwood to keep one of our guys. It should have killed the other one. I imagine this is going to be one of those faulty replay things. I believe it kills one of them and not the other one. At least that's what happened in my actual game, as I recall. Okay, so the replay's gone a bit faulty. Let's see if we can kind of salvage it. So yeah, in the game I played, this Mystic went to the graveyard, and then I attacked and ate it up, and it became my Scavenging Ooze became a 3/3. Put a pathing so I get rid of his Electrolyze in the graveyard. I assume Electrolyze isn't counted if one of the targets becomes uncounterable. I'm wrong. Maybe this replay is a better reflection of the rules, but I think it is just actually gone a bit funny. Okay, that's unfortunate. So yeah, eventually our opponent wins this matchup. It's a bit of a war of attrition. Hopefully my other one works fine. But yeah, a bit of a war of attrition. Our opponent starts burning me out. Oh no, it's working now. But yeah, as I say, Selfish Mystic isn't here, so it's very strange. Sorry about this, I didn't really check the replay, I just played this match and then I wanted to do a recording straight away because it just seemed like quite a fun one. Quite a few interesting interactions, etc. I think I'm just passing the turn with Collected Company up just to see what happens. Yeah, obviously this is just falling apart somehow. Yeah, I ended up losing, but yeah, it was a bit of a war attrition. He kills some of my guys. Eventually I try and Collected Company to get back, but I think he has a counter for it, negate or something, and then obviously it doesn't work out particularly well, but apologies for that replay being so buggy. Electrolyze kind of ruins a lot of things in replays for some reason, which is kind of annoying. Hopefully it hasn't happened to this game, so we'll see. So this is our opener for game 3. Brought in Relic. He does have Snapcasters and Lingering Souls in his deck, possibly amongst other things, so decided to bring in Relic. We also brought in the Worm Coil as a sort of unexpected beater and something that could possibly get quite a lot of value. Just going to lead off with a Nettle Sentinel. Kind of want to deal as much damage as possible to our opponent. So tap for 2, Land War Elves to untap the Sentinel. Draw another Sentinel, which is going to tap for 2, and then I'm going to drop the Sentinel and the Relic. Thought about playing the Visionary, but I figured if he has a mana leak or something, I might be better off doing it this way around. Also like running out the Sentinels because they protect against Electrolyze. Means I won't be like completely blown out by Electrolyze. He cracks a Strand, just exile it from his graveyard, so he's down to 0 cards. Can't do anything too clever. Well, as time reinforcements, we draw a Heritage Druid. Just going to exile from his graveyard so he doesn't have a chance to snap castrate at some other point, as that would be very annoying. Heritage Druid is pretty awesome here with double Nettle Sentinel. So we can basically play out all our hand, like the elves in our hand. So we can Heritage Druid, tap with our 3 guys, make Elvish Archdruid, which untaps the Nettle Sentinels. Then we tap Elvish Archdruid and the Nettle Sentinels to make 3 more mana, which can play us into a Visionary. We draw a Run Vanquisher, which I then tap my for 3 mana and my Land War Elves. Just card cast it because we don't have any other elves in hand. I suppose we could have corded actually for something else, but I'm not entirely sure what we would have wanted here. I don't think we had quite enough. I think we had 5 mana, didn't we? So we couldn't have gotten a Zuri, which would have been the best possible, I think. We are running into a Supreme Verdict pretty hard, but I think we just got to go for it at this point. We've committed quite heavily to the board, and it seems pretty good. If we can get to next turn, then I feel fairly happy with our situation. So we attack with our Nettle Sentinels. I figure why not. Deal 3 damage. He trades with one of the Nettle Sentinels, then he casts Timely on his turn. Just very glad it's not Supreme Verdict. Seems good to me. Exile the Timely reinforcements. Play an Elvish Visionary so I can untap my Nettle Sentinel. Draw into a land. And I could have, and maybe should have, just passed the turn keeping Cord up. That way I can potentially drop in a Zuri onto the battlefield end of turn, and then we probably just win the following turn. We can attack for a ridiculous amount, provided you can't get rid of some of our guys. So that probably was the better play. I think I just got a bit worried that Wormcoil would be entirely stuck in my hand if I didn't sort of hardcast it now, and also I figured Wormcoil is pretty awesome, so that's why I wanted to drop onto the battlefield, but I figure we probably were better off just passing the turn with Cord up. Then if he Supreme Verdicts, we could have dropped Zuri onto the battlefield and then potentially regened most of our guys. Obviously Zuri would have died, but at least that would sort of mitigate that potential worst case scenario. And then if he does nothing, or he taps out for something that isn't a Wrath effect, then we can drop a Zuri and just win the game. So I feel like that probably was the better play. I'm not sure I always did my Cord plays the best as I could have done. Turns out our opponent has a Path to Exile, which is going to use on our Elvish Archdruid after blocking the way he did, which means that he's going to be able to kill off our Nettle Sentinel and our Heritage Druid, which leaves us a little bit hurt, but still got a fairly decent battlefield. Couldn't cast the Lingering Souls, passes the turn. There's not any black mana, so I'm not too worried about him flashing that back at the moment. So still going to use the Relic, but not actually going to be able to get the Lingering Souls. So my guys, I keep back my elves just in case it's basically for the Cord. Fortunately, our opponent has another Path to Exile, which is going to get rid of the Wormcoil, which is really disappointing. We're still going to be able to get into 3, and we're not in the worst position, but our opponent has an Electrolyze, so he's chipping away at our guys. I'm able to call for 3 here, which I'm going to do. if possible. Unfortunately, our opponent has a remand, which is going to send the card back, and we're going to lose the heritage during the land war. He's looking to card for Elvish. That way we can save both our guys and have a ton of mana in play, and just in general we'd have quite a fairly big dude, so we could probably just attack in. Draw an Elvish Archer this turn, which certainly isn't bad, and get aggressive, which knocks our opponent down to 5. Attacks for 2 Rug Souls. I draw a Zuri, which seems awesome. I try and snap drop it in. My opponent counters and then taps all my creatures down with Cryptic. Given though he's basically dead, I probably should have just waited for it. We could have just passed the turn. I guess, well, gone to attackers and forced him to tap my guys down, which may have been better. Still, either way, I suppose he could draw Verdict, and then at least this way he's not drawing a card, I guess. We thought to card now in response, which probably wasn't the best ideas. Basically just get an Azuri and potentially protect our guys. Well, one guy, given the amount of mana I've got, so I don't know if that was the best of ideas, but it does set up basically a win next turn, so I suppose there is that. Well, provided he doesn't have more Cryptics. But yeah, as it turns out, he does get the Verdict, which is pretty disappointing, and I don't know, if we hadn't had the card, then I suppose we would have been in probably a worse position, so we're just going to be able to regen our Elvish Archduid. Could regen the Vanquisher, but I think for the 1 extra point of power, we're probably better off with the Archdruid. Also makes any other creatures we play afterwards better. So opponent's on 5, we're going to be able to attack for 2 here. It doesn't look like he's got any removal left, or hopefully not. Just to play this Llanowar Elves. There's an Electrolyze to kill off the Archdruid. Draw Vines of Afterward, which can be lethal, but I am not taking that particular risk, I don't think. Our opponent has Snapcaster, and he's going to try and Snapcaster Path by clear the graveyard. It also draws me a card, and that turns out to be an Elvish Archdruid, which is nice. Unblocks, I could use the Vines of Afterward to save the elves, but I don't think that's particularly worthwhile. And really, we only need like 1 creature. We could have kept the Archdruid back actually, and until we could protect it with vines. But again, I think probably just better off trying to be as aggressive as possible. Draw a Mystic, which is perfect. Going to attack for 1. Opponent has no response. A Nettle Sentinel. And cracks his Fluid Strand just to thin his deck as much as possible, just to see if he can find an answer on top. And it turns out he doesn't, so he concedes. So yeah, that was a pretty crazy game 3 as well. Really fun. I don't think I made all the right decisions. I think there were some core decisions that I should have played better. But we did come out on top, and yeah, it was a really cool and close, fun game. Jeskai control in general seems like a pretty rough matchup, but if you can get past their removal, that's pretty nice. Spellskite would actually be really good in this matchup, and kind of wish I had it for this one, just to protect our important guys. But yeah, ends up on the winning end, so feeling pretty good, but very interesting matchup, very fun, and quite a lot of decisions to be made, particularly with Cord. So yeah, a fun one.